Hello and welcome back. This is a video over section 4.4 notes, and this is a section about solving percent problems using percent equations. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be able to translate percent problems to percent equations, and then we'll just go ahead and solve those basic percent problems. So let's go ahead and talk about translating to equations. So you'll have these phrases, and let's just kind of think about this for a second. And I still like to think about my pizza concept. So if we have a a pizza here, and let's say we've divided this into 8 pieces, so we have 8 total pieces. Okay, and if I wanted to find, say, 50% of this total piece of this total pizza, then what I would do is I would take this percentage, I would translate that into a decimal, which would be 0.5, and I would take 0.5 and I would multiply it by my 8 total pieces, and if I do 0.5 times 8, that's going to give me 4. Okay, so this number here is your percent, okay, in decimal form. The 8 is your total amount, okay, and the 4 is your percent of total, okay. And so this is what we typically use to find percentages of numbers, okay, and which is what we're kind of doing in this section. But I want to talk about this this equation that we wrote here, and there's kind of a formula for it. So it's the percentage times the total amount is equal to the percent of the total. And so what I like to call this, and let's write this up here, is your percent equation, okay, which is going to be P times B is equal to A, okay, where P is your percent, okay, B is your total amount, and then A is your amount, percent of total. Okay, and that's all we're doing. Okay, now we have some words here that we have to talk about. So the important words to be able to translate. So I'm going to write words to help translate. Okay. And those words that we use are of, is, and what. All right, and so what translates to multiplication, translates to multiplying. All right, is translates to equals, and what translates to any letter. Okay, so it's important that we do this, and I'm going to show you how I go through each of these here in a second. Okay, so let's go down and let's just jump right in. All right, so we're going to solve these percent problems. And the first one says, what is 12% of $50? Okay, so what I would do in this scenario is I would write down P times B is equal to A. Okay, so 12%, that's going to go for P. All right, so P is going to be 12%. And then it says of. Okay, now remember, of stood for multiplication. So of $50 means that I'm going to, of is kind of translated here. Okay, so I'm going to do 12% of $50. So I'm going to put times $50, and that's equal to what? So is what is equal to A. All right, and that's all we're going to do. Now the first thing we have to do is turn this percent into a decimal. So we're going to move our decimal place over 2 spaces, and we get 0.12 times $50 is equal to A. And then we just multiply these two numbers together to get that value of A. And so if I do 0.12 times 50, then that's going to give me 6. So 6 is equal to A. And that's what we're trying to find. So 6 is 12% of 50. Okay. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay. And this one is read a little bit easier. It says 120% of 42 is what? So again, I'm going to write down P times B is equal to A. Okay, my percentage is 120%. So 120% of 42, of meaning multiplication here, okay? So of 42 is equal to A. Now again, I have to take 120%, turn that into a decimal, so I'm going to move my decimal place over 2 units. And so I end up getting 1.2 times 42 is equal to A. So if I do that in the calculator, that's going to give me 50.4, okay, and that's equal to A. All right, and that's all we're doing, okay. Let's take a look at another one, okay. So then this says 8% of what is 32, okay. So again, I'm going to continue to write down P times B is equal to A. Now when I read this, okay, this 8% here is my percent, is my P. So I'm going to put 8%, and it says of, which means that we're going to do multiplication of what? Okay, so 8% of what translates to P times B, because we don't know what B is. That's what we're trying to find. Okay, it translates to any letter. So I'm going to put times B, okay, and that is 32. Remember, is translates to equal sign, and then is 32, that's my value for A, okay? So this is 32. Now what I've got, I'm going to turn 8% into a decimal. Okay, so I'm going to take this decimal place here, move it over 2 units. So I get 0.08, and then times B is equal to 32. Okay, so now what I have is I have one of these one-step equations that we've done, okay, where I'm taking some number times a variable is equal to 32. All right, so since I'm multiplying by 0.8, in order to move that to the other side, what I have to do, because I'm multiplying it, I have to divide both sides by 0.08. Divide this by 0.08. Okay, 0.08 divided by 0.08 divides out to 1, and so then you're just left with B is equal to 32 divided by 0.08. All right, so if I do that in the calculator, then that's going to give me a value of B is equal to 400, okay? So what we can say is that 8% of 400 is going to give me 32, all right? So, you know, in the previous 2 examples, we were solving for A, and this one we're solving for B, okay? All right, let's take a look over here. Now, in this one, it's read a little bit differently, okay? $3 is 16% of what? So what I want to do, again, P times B is equal to A, okay? Now, my percentage is 16%, so I'm going to put that here, 16% of what? Okay, remember, of translates to multiplication, and what is the variable B? So we don't know what B is, but we're going to put times B, and that's going to be equal to A. Now, A is translates to equal sign, okay, and then $3. So $3 is going to be put in here, and that's going to be put in for A. All right, so again, same thing. I'm going to take 16%, I'm going to turn my decimal, or turn my percent into a decimal, so I get 0.16 times B is equal to $3, okay? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides. To solve this for B, divide by both sides by 0.16, divide by 0.16. These are going to divide out, and then B is going to equal $3 divided by 0.16. So I'm going to do 3 divided by 0.16. And guys, you'd want to use your calculator on this. but it's important that you show your work, okay, and that you set up these equations. Okay, you may be able to do some of these in your head, but it's important that you can do that. All right, your answer is going to be 18.75. All right, and that's and you can put that in dollar form. So 16% of 18.75 is $3. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. And on this, it's asking for percent. So, let's write out our equation again. P times B is equal to A. All right, so it says what percent of $50 is 16? So it's asking for what percent, all right, and that's our P value. So P times some number B, so of translates to multiplication over here, so of $50, so B is $50, all right, and then that's going to equal $16. Okay, so if I wanted to solve for P, all right, I'm multiplying P by 50. So I'm gonna, if I'm multiplying by 50 to move that to the other side, I want to divide both sides by 50. So if I divide by $50 on both sides, okay, divide this by $50, then what's going to happen is I'm going to get that P is equal to 16 divided by 50. Now let's go ahead and divide these two numbers and get a decimal for this, and what's going to happen is we're going to get this as 0.32. Okay, that's our percent, but it's in decimal form. So we want to, turn it into a percent. We move the decimal to the right 2 units, so we know that our percentage is 32%. Okay. All right, let's do the last one real quick, and then I'll let you guys get working on your homework. And it says 16 is what percent of 40? Okay, now again, I'm going to write out P times B is equal to A. Okay, and it says it's asking for, what percent of 40. So we don't know what the percent is, all right? So we're going to leave that as P, and remember that of, translates to multiplication here. Okay, so percent of 40. That's what B is. B is going to be 40. So P times 40 is equal to 16. Okay, and I got that because it says 16 is, all right, is 16. All right, same thing. You can kind of read them frontwards and backwards, doesn't matter. All right, so then let's go ahead and divide both sides by 40, okay, to solve this equation. All right, so I get that P is equal to 16 divided by 40. And if we plug that into the calculator, 16 divided by 40, that's going to give me 0.4. So P is equal to 0.4. And then if I wanted to turn that into a percent, I move my decimal place 2 places to the right. And so I put a placeholder here of 40. And so P is equal to 40%. And that's it. So not too bad, but you have to just read it, understand what these, this percent equation, and to kind of be able to, use the words of, is, and what to figure out your unknown and all that. So pretty simple, not too bad. Homework is 7 through 35 on. Go ahead and get started. If you got any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.